of implementations and everything that EBS interacts with, Hyperion, Golden Gate, OBIE, whatnot. That's about a little bit about myself. And the next slide we're going to see is about a little bit about DataWell and its capabilities, which includes pretty much all Oracle applications that are prepackaged along with the WebLogic and ODI nowadays, cloud platforms. And we offer services across managed services, fine-tuning the environments, upgrades, cloud migrations, roadmaps with whatever that is needed for the application lifecycle and various things, and some automation around monitoring and operational activity to increase the efficiency and reduce the time spent by DBA. This is a little bit of DataWell. And we would like you to fill out the survey, wherein you'll be entered into a lottery or a lottery to to be picked to win this particular ticket tunes. And we'll share the URL in the chat as well. And I'll stop during the question and answer session on the screen, just in case if we need more time to make note of this. All right, so why are we here? Today we're going to talk about EBS journey to cloud and what can we do to reduce post-migration surprises or challenges, and how do we make the journey much more proactive / planned actions versus reactive actions. And in which, and to begin with, why are we going through this journey? And this particular slide speaks about some of the statistics in the industry where everyone is adapting some sort of cloud in their infrastructure. Some of the stats here indicate that, and what we've seen with most of the customers, they either take EBS and plan for EBS to be part of the migration in the beginning in their cloud journey because they're big applications, key performance indicators, or okay, let's put non-critical where we have some room with some room to learn, and then take that learning and plan for EBS, which is more critical at a later stage. We've seen both cases. But either way, the list of things that we are going to discuss here will be able, if we do this, whether we do it first or last, you will pretty much know whatever is there to migrate EBS to cloud and be confident that our migration is going to be successful with minimum to no surprises at all. All right. Again, why cloud migrations, why EBS, and particularly when it comes to EBS migrations, it is very complicated given the integrations that it will have. Otherwise, if we don't have the integrations, EBS is more or less outside of the application services and differences, more or less becomes any other database with respect to technical aspect. But when we bring EBS interface jobs and their importance and the timing of each job and completion of each job, that's what makes it EBS unique with respect to financial close, forecasting, or whatnot, that could impact operations heavily and cause escalations. So that's what makes EBS more complicated challenge than any other application. So what we're going to look at is 7 essential elements that we have to look at when we migrate EBS to cloud or data center migration. We can call it whatever that is, but these days we see pretty much every EBS owner either going from on-prem to one of the cloud platforms, depending on their current existing architecture, whether let it be OCI, AWS, or Azure, or a cloud at customer, various scenarios. But irrespective of the target that they're going to, once we take these 7 steps, we kind of understand what is there, how it is changing, how do we feel comfortable once we get whatever we choose to. So the 7 things being, the first one being the interface jobs. We'll talk a little bit more when we go to the specific slide. And then the second one being application version certification status as of today, and what it will be when you go to cloud that you're choosing, and how it impacts your migration strategy. What are the things that we need to look at? We'll discuss a little bit more about that, and the current storage solution. If the database is small enough, this becomes less important. But if the database is more than 2 terabyte and you have 4 or 5 non-prod environments or more, how does it impact? What are the things that one should look for? And then if your environment is more performance centric, then what you have now, and what is the equivalent storage or equivalent performance that you're going to get on cloud? What is the equivalent option that we have to choose, and what can be done to understand that? And then data migration strategy, which is basically taking your data from on-prem to cloud, and few things that make an impact on the outcome, and how you take this data to cloud, how long it's going to take, what is your cutover time, and few topics related to that we'll touch, and the storage footprint on cloud. So on-prem, you may not have, most probably if it is a big database, some sort of storage footprint reduction in the form of deduplication, or some other technology. You may have on-prem footprint, but what does it mean when we take the same storage to cloud? Do we have similar option? Are we growing in our storage footprint? What do we need to look at? How do we operate with respect to operations cost and various things? We can review a few items there. And testing strategy. Obviously, testing is key in any migration or any change, but we'll talk about few specific topics that are related to EBS, and what are the things that we should look into, and from our learnings as well. You can see that in that particular slide. And then last but not least, for the most part, we've seen that, okay, we found a solution, but when it comes to operational status, this becomes the somewhat not so important task. But what we learned is this is also key to review these strategies, understand how it impacts our audit requirements, our business requirements, and things like that, and then review those aspects as well. It could be a change in your monitoring tool, change in your backup tool, licensing costs, support member requirement, what that is. So unless we do all this analysis together, we keep hitting some surprises during the cloud journey. So when we go through these slides, we'll speak to specific topics, and you can see what those are. Yeah, the first one being the interface jobs. Ultimately, when we migrate any EBS job, our top priority is making sure none of the existing functionality is impacted and they perform the way they should. So how do we make sure or give confidence to the business that they're not going to see any problem once we migrate? And the only way that we can achieve that confidence, or we can give that confidence to business, is that pretty much identify all interface jobs and their connection methods. The key here is the connection methods. So they're software-based connections, or the custom connections, or some other form connection, or a DB link. We have to identify all these methods for each interface job and have a testing strategy associated with it. they're not, sometimes we find that, okay, this job is not important, but what happens is when we take only EBS from on-prem to cloud and rest stays on-prem, or for a period of time, it is possible that you may have these applications separated. They may have a future state where everything will be located in the same, or it could be multi-cloud platform. They could be separated. So it is important to understand how the connection method is now, and during the journey, what the current the connection method status will be. Will there be any impact to that connection method, right? And then post EBS move and rest of the application method, rest of the applications move to whatever target state is, what that state is going to be. So when we look at interface jobs, it is important to see these. And at the same time, for each interface job, not just where it is performance critical, this is obvious, but we've seen customers, oh, this job is, oh, job ran and completed normal, but when the true UAT comes into picture, hey, this job took 2 hours versus 2 minutes, right? And now changing the underneath storage, finding the appropriate fix, it becomes more complicated. So when we review these interface jobs, it is important to make sure that the transaction volume stats, what is our daily average for the transactions, what is our monthly peak hour utilization or transaction volume stats for the same job, what are their run stats. Yes, it is a little bit difficult to replicate the same in non-prod, but that's what gives us the benefit and comfort post-migration. Hey, I've done this, I don't have any surprises. But the key is identifying those volume stats and replicating that in non-prod. And we've seen some old implementations, not so standard implementations, where the processing happens via DB link. And when this kind of interface job is there, you take one database and put it somewhere else. Now the transaction is happening across the network, which impacts the job like anything. It's not very key performance indicator, but all of a sudden you have a hot potato in your hand. In a day or so, you have to fix this. So pay attention to the connection methods and the transaction volumes, and going through the Excel sheet, putting all the jobs and going through various stats and metrics for each job, understanding that detail gives and answers all the questions and doubts we may have. But this is one key item that makes a difference in the outcome of your cloud migration. So the next one being application versions and certification status. In this, the key thing is, if you're already on 12.2, doesn't make a difference. But if you, for some reason, you're still on 12.1.3, as of now, EBS 12.1.3 support will end in December 2021. So if you're starting this journey and you're on 12.1.3 now, you'll have a question about, okay, shall I migrate first and then upgrade, or upgrade first and then migrate? Sort of question will arise. So we have to review that, and at the same time, what is the current operating system that you have? Is it compatible? Do you need to perform an upgrade? Do you need to perform a cross-platform migration with respect to OS? Any support and support-related questions to be addressed at a deep OS level, DB level, and application level. And how do you tackle that? Are you going to tackle that as part of the migration itself, or a pre or post, based on the timeline constraints and budget and various needs that will come across this discussion? Yeah, that also we've seen with the customers going through that debate of, okay, what do I do? If I upgrade first, then I'm losing all my history and awareness about the application stability, right? And then migrate, then you're introducing another change. So within short span, you're introducing two changes, which is going to be difficult for the business users to understand. Versus if you maintain that history, like, okay, we are on 12.1.3, I'm taking this to cloud on 12.1.3, and we are paying close attention to the internet platform change, infrastructure change, which is easy to handle. For customer, okay, nothing changed. They just moved from one platform to another platform. My performance is the same. Versus if we go from 12.1.3 to 12.2, there could be some changes. It could be as simple as GUI changes and how things are done in 12.1.3 versus 12.2. There is some change which may put customer at the end user at discomfort level. But again, it depends on each customer and each client and their needs. But this is definitely a discussion to go through. If it is performance centric, take it from 12.1.3 on-prem to cloud. But as we've gone through these webinars, every month we see that we are getting closer to December 2021. It becomes hard to pick up and finish the cloud upgrade and then do the migration. So depending on what's your cloud strategy and how much time you have and how you can address these two, that's one big thing to look at. If you're already on 12.2 and 19C upgrade, that is taken care on-prem, it's just migrating from on-prem to cloud, it's less complicated. But this is where it makes a difference when it comes to application versions and certification status. And understand the various pros and cons of various approaches. The next one is current storage solution. This is going to be key item for the DBA or the architect who's identifying the solution on cloud platform. The key thing is, what is the current IOPS requirement for your database? When we say IOPS, we have to look at various aspects. We have to look at the response time. Is it in 1 millisecond? What is the worst that you can live with, or worst that you have seen on-prem in your peak utilization time? That could be workday -1, workday 2, or workday 3, or every day at a certain time where you have a lot of bad jobs running. So you need to take consideration for all these various scenarios. You may have workday 2, 3, 4, where more concurrent users are in the system performing the same or same kind of activity. So you have to take into consideration all these key business transaction windows and then review these details. One is throughput, other one is how much latency is there, how data storage is responding to the application needs. That is going to be the key to establish. So if there is a job that we have on workday -1 or workday 1 or 2, where this job needs to complete in 1 hour. So rest of the month, you may not have that requirement, but when it comes to close, you may have that requirement. So to stick with the same SLAs that you may have with your business, you have to work with that high requirement scenario and identify the appropriate solution on cloud. Or, okay, this is too expensive, we don't have to go through this, but then you have to have the conversation with the end user in explaining, hey, we can do this, but it's going to be this much, versus we go for this, it's going to be this much. Because when it comes to cloud, they are pre-built, pre-configured. There are only few options that you have to choose from. It's not like I have this requirement. On-prem, we can purchase whatever we need and make the solution work. You can do these things differently on-prem, but when it comes to cloud, it's just you have to choose from what is available. It's not customizable. So this particular junction, where it is performance-centric, this becomes a very key item to look at. Then again, how to look at this data? We can look at AWR report during both regular and peak workloads. And then this helps identify what your target cloud solution is going to be. So and then disk types and configurations. And when it comes to target cloud solutions that are available, each cloud platform, they call it different and they offer the same, not same, but they offer the flexibility to choose with respect to cost and performance needs. And it changes for each cloud platform. Then the next one is data migration strategy. This is a smaller challenge if it is a small database of 2 terabyte or less, and you have a downtime of 6 hours or 8 hours or 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on your business needs. But where it is the bigger database, it becomes a challenge. And how you're going to take your data from on-prem to cloud, that is for your first POC needs, and later on for each environment migration, and then during the prod cutover, how much time it's going to take. All these aspects needs to be reviewed when we are taking the data migration strategy into consideration. So there are several options that are available: AWS, Cloud Endure, Azure, ASR, OCI, zero downtime migration with the data guard, hybrid data guard model, various options on each cloud platform. And independent of the cloud platform, there are other solutions out there which can help the overall migration. And then how do you clone your non-prod environments while you're in the POC stage, or while you are migrating non-prod, but prod is still on-prem? How do you keep cloning the non-prod environments from on-prem production environment? So depending on your number of non-prod instances and cloning cycle frequency, you have to review all those things. Otherwise, you may have to live with some static data or duplicate of environments for the period of time you're going to migrate the data. So there's some items that you have to look into this problem. But once you are across that 5 terabyte or 10 terabyte and your downtime cutover window is smaller, then you really need to look into every task and identify that, yes, this solution works with not just non-prod environments cloning and cutover to cloud, but also prod, true downtime cutover time, and various things. So that's where it makes a difference in choosing the right strategy. And whatever that we choose, and it is important to make sure that as part of the POC itself, this is exercised. Sometimes we think that because it is POC, we don't have to do exactly what we do in production, but it is, when it comes to EBS and cloud migration strategy, the POC needs to be conducted more or less like a UAT environment, UAT phase, approval from business, because anything we choose, let it be data migration strategy, storage solution, cost effect, everything, we can change the solution underneath solution to fix the issue, but it will have ripple effect in various areas. Could be cost, it could be response times and transaction times, and how you clone environments and how it replicates across non-prod environments. So various things, like if you're selecting a specific storage solution, okay, yeah, that right now I've chosen the lower end storage disk, but to meet the requirement, I'll pick the bigger disk. But consider that if the same thing needs to be done for 5 environments, now you're all of a sudden paying the double for the same storage. Size is same, but performance wise it's different, and you're doubling. So it is important to consider the POC with respect to performance, solution that is being implemented in various aspects. Everything needs to be considered. Otherwise, one, for troubleshooting needs, you may have to delay the project. Two, it will have cost impact. and then some not so great experience for the end users as well. They'll start doubting, okay, they did something, but we are going through the same experience of a trial and error versus everything is addressed up front. So by taking these measures, we can change the experience for the business as well. So the storage footprint on-prem with the latest and greatest storage solutions available, we can simply use the virtual storage on non-prod, and production is only physical storage on-prem. But when we go to cloud, that option is not available on every cloud platform. That needs to be reviewed. So on-prem, if you're like 10 terabyte, including prod and non-prod, or 50 terabyte, including prod and non-prod, with the storage efficiencies and the features available on-prem, that could multiply by 4 when you go to cloud. Still, that storage solution could be cheaper, but needs to be reviewed and considered. If we just consider that, hey, on-prem I have 10 terabyte, I'm just gonna pay for 10 terabyte on cloud, that's not gonna apply, because the deduplication and efficiency features you may have on-prem may not be applicable on cloud. So that needs to be reviewed, and with respect to performance, as well as the cost impacts that you are going to have. That is important item as well. And then whatever solution that you're selecting, how do you clone your non-prod environment? Is it going to be RMM clone? Is there another way to clone production to non-prod? What is my clone time right now to complete the clone and hand over to development team or application support team? Based on the storage, that solution that you're going to select, how is this going to change? How is this going to impact various SLAs you may have with the application support team or the business? Needs to be reviewed. And at the same time, there are some third-party solutions with respect to, let it be a performance requirement, or let it be a storage footprint reduction at the DB level. There's some solutions out there that can be reviewed, or if it is a pure performance centric, and some cloud platforms may have limitation on what storage solutions they have, how much IO latency they can provide. There are solutions out there embedded into each cloud platform that can be adapted and solve the problem. And they also bring additional benefits that we have on-prem that can be implemented as well. So depending on the requirement, these things needs to be reviewed. And the next one is the testing strategy. We talked about it a little bit earlier. So at the testing strategy, identify all interface jobs, make sure their connection methods, their volumes related to each interface job, and then make sure they complete. And then the other factor that we need to consider is the load test scenarios. And how do you replicate that true end user load test scenario? Again, we've seen with customers when they're going to cloud, their existing Q&A automation process and tools, they also need to adapt the cloud platform, how it changes their existing setup. So even if they have automation in place on-prem, whether it is still applicable to cloud platform and what we are doing, that needs to be reviewed with the QA team and make sure that is applied appropriately. And then again, as we talked about, not just jobs completing, but runtimes to be reviewed along with the volume details. And then with respect to environment strategy, if we need to have one prod-like environment where the performance will be like, we can call it UAD or performance environment, whatever that is, how we are going to measure our performance before we deploy it in production, that needs to be tested. And when we are performing the POC, we need to build that POC environment to look like production, exact production, and go through all these test scenarios and capture these metrics to show to the business that, hey, these are the key performance indicators that we've identified, and these are the performance times on cloud with the existing setup, which gives confidence to the business users that what is needed is done, and they'll be at ease to take on the migration. Last but not least, because otherwise we've seen customers go through what is the monitoring solution now that I'm here, what is my monitoring solution, and then go through that, and it could take a couple months before something is in place and being effective. So review backup solution, monitoring solution, and when it comes to backup solution, what is your RTO, RPO, how it would change, or is it still possible to meet the required, right? And then how do you make sure that the new monitoring tools that is available on cloud, can it work with your current ITSM solution at various levels, at OS level, DB level, application level, and whatever additional tools that you may have for the same monitoring needs. So this is important to make sure that if there is a component that you're not responsible for, which is application for the most part, when the application owner is going through this journey, it is tied to the OS level monitoring backup solution that is going to be part of it, and the backup solution readiness from the infrastructure perspective, and similarly for the monitoring solutions. We need to review these details to understand how it is going to change, and is it going to be the same scenario with all whatever SLAs you may have for audit and business needs and recoverability point of view. That takes some time to make sure this all works and operations are going to be good scenario. All right, that takes us to government members. Yeah, so another thing that we have to look at when it comes to cloud, the cloud hibernation concept, and depending on what kind of contract that you may have with the cloud provider, cloud offers pay as you use the environment strategy. So you can put some automation. This is one of the cloud capabilities that is, if you're not using it, shut it down and don't pay for it. So if we've seen customers adapt that, and at the same time, it is quite possible technically to adapt this, that if your support team is only 12 hours a day, you can shut down all your non-prod in an automated way and keep it down and pay for only 12 hours, not 24 hours every day. And similarly for the weekend, Friday to Sunday, shut it down and bring it up automatically, and then you don't have to pay for it. And at the same time, you may have environments that are used only 1 week in a month. In a similar scenario there, you can shut it down and pay for that 1 week, and then use it when you need it. You can bring it up as you need it. Yes, it requires a little bit of automation and effort, but once you put this in place, just by adapting these strategies, the compute cost, you can reduce it by 50%. If it is true 24/7 operations for every environment, and including prod is obviously 24/7, but anything that is different from these scenarios, there is always a chance to benefit at a greater deal. Again, it is tied to what kind of contract you have with the cloud provider in this billing strategy, but that can be adapted, and you can build up new environments as you need. You really don't have to plan 2 months ahead of a project where you need a new environment to build up another environment. But once you identify these routine tasks or tasks that you may need as part of projects or implementations, you can easily build on cloud very easily compared to on-prem. But it is important to have those discussions with the respective cloud solution architects and the operations team to review that strategy and, hey, how are we going to implement it? Otherwise, the technical feasibility will be there, but the implementation could take 6 months, 1 year, because no one is once you are there, it's no longer that hard, unless you have a corporate agenda to make sure every environment that is there went through the hibernation strategy and applied. Otherwise, there is a exception approval in place not to adopt hibernation kind of scenario. So these are the 7 things that we've seen with our customers and in our experience also that make a big difference in changing the outcome with respect to, is it planned and acted action versus unplanned, reactive, and change in plan kind of experience. And we've seen this change the impact and make it much more smoother for not just for the infrastructure team, application team, end user team. And this is more controlled version of the same journey and changing the outcome. So as part of this, Oracle offers, OCI offers 0 downtime, and it's near 0 downtime. And the same can be applied to various cloud technologies using various tools. We'll be able to perform those kind of migrations as needed. And as part of our every migration that we've been doing, holistically review IT environment and covers every aspect that we talked about. Determine your unique benefits, challenges, and requirements, and prepare a cloud readiness report, execute lift and shift, and performing software integrations related to EBS when you're adopting the cloud strategy, and monitor and manage environment performance throughout the migration. So these are a few things that we offer as part of our migration strategy. And if you need further details, you can always reach us at the details provided here.